Welcome to the Bowden Blitz College Football Playoff Edition. I'm Joe Lisi, joined by former National Coach of the Year, Terry Bowden. Coach, the 2025 season is in the books. The Indiana Hoosiers complete a perfect season. They win the game against the Miami Hurricanes on Monday night, 27-21. They don't get the cover as basically a 7.5-point favorite, but the game does go through the total of 46.5. Give me your thoughts about what transpired on Monday night and the season put in by Indiana and their head coach, Kurt Signetti.
Well, I mean, amazing year, ended with a victory and an undefeated season. So hard to win every game in college football. You can go your whole career, 20, 30 years and have one or two. It just doesn't happen very often. For Kurt to do it in his first second year at Indiana to a team that was one of the worst teams in college, the worst team in college football. Great year, but it was a great game. I think Miami, they tried to do the things they had to do to win. Pressure on the quarterback, run the football. They didn't count on a block punt. They didn't count on a 50-yard field goal being missed, or they maybe win the game. But the bottom line was Indiana was a little better at almost every statistic. They were a little bit better. That I think at quarterback, Mendoza came through as the gamer. He's the guy that at the end of the game, he led him to touchdown at the end of the game. A great run for a touchdown. Beck on a 1st and 10 with 48 seconds left. You don't force the ball. He throws a pick on 1st and 10 with 48 seconds left. A chance to win the game. He blinked. I guess he blinked. But basically, Miami had everything in line. Pressure the quarterback, run the football the best they could. But Indiana just they blocked 8 punts the last 2 years. It wasn't like that was an unexpected thing. That was just another blocked punt and another reason they're so well coached and won like they did at Indiana.
Indiana had the best turnover margin in college football entering that matchup. They were plus 21. Miami entered that battle right in the area of about plus 11. They needed to win the turnover battle. Not only that, they needed to win on third down conversions. Indiana had not only had the best turnover margin, they also had the best third down offense in college football, converting 56% of their third down opportunities. They had the better quarterback. That definitely solidified himself, at least for now, as the number 1 overall pick in April's draft, most likely going to Las Vegas. But Fernando Mendoza lived up to the hype. Maybe not a stellar effort over 200 yards, but he got the rushing touchdown. He put his team in a position, didn't really turn the football over, and that's the main reason why Indiana did solidify the 6-point win. I think it's intriguing, Coach. I read the article that Indiana didn't fumble the football, I believe, since week number 1, which was like 1,047 snaps. I mean, that just goes to show you the attention to detail by Signetti, by the staff. I mean, players are young, right? Whether they be 22, 23, 18 years old. I mean, to not lose a fumble since week number 1 is just an amazing statistic to play out throughout the regular season.
Joe, it's another instance of a team that's well coached. Fumbling, it's coached. How to hold the football, how to secure the football, how to cover it, the 5 points of pressure. Don't hold it away from your body. Cover it up when you get hit. All those things are coaching. You can't really determine. Once a ball is fumbled, it's almost luck who recovers it. But by not fumbling, that's coached. In Indiana, that was another case of doing the things that you have to do to win. Just like blocking that punt. That wasn't a special punt rush. That was their normal punt rush. A guy going above and beyond. They had done it 8 times the last 2 years. Those are the things that make a difference. In a football game like this, those are the difference in the football game.
Yeah, they are. And again, Signetti in his first 2 seasons wins a national championship. I think it's important to recognize as well, he came in with just an attitude saying that we're going to win with this program. And you mentioned they were the doormat of the Big Ten. And we talk about teams like Michigan and Ohio State, the blue bloods of the conference that had won it in back-to-back years. And you think that Indiana, just for the history with Bobby Knight and known as a basketball school, it really is a remarkable story, Coach, that not only did he turn around this program, he brought them to the top in such a quick amount of time. They didn't have a double-digit winning season over the past 30 to 40 years, Coach. And look at what he was able to do, hit the ground running in today's NIL era. He's doing it better than anyone.
Well, there was a lot of things. A perfect storm usually means something bad, but this is one of those perfect storms of everything good coming together. He wasn't a rookie head coach. He's been a head coach for years at 3 different institutions, and he was doing the same things at Indiana. He did so. He's an established head coach. He knows how to be a head coach, how to make those kind of decisions, how to run a football team. Those things he brought in. Then when you throw in a school that has a Mark Cuban, that has a budget for NIL, they say, oh, no, we're not the most. Well, it may not have been the most, but it was enough. But it takes great evaluation with that money. He did a great job of evaluation. Maybe that goes back to his days as a recruiting coordinator for Nick Saban and understanding how Nick Saban evaluated talent. He understood how to evaluate talent, not necessarily looking for 5 stars and 4 stars, another area where he came in ready to go. And I think the biggest thing we see is that forget that I think all the teams in the country are going to look at Indiana and say, okay, what did this season tell us? What did he show us? Because I guarantee everybody will be studying him. And it's not so much the 5 stars or the 4 stars as Nick Saban, I heard him say this past weekend. Why do we depend on a bunch of guys that don't know as much about football to tell us who the best players are when we ought to be looking at the video, using our statistics and our analytics and picking our top guys that fit our system? That's what Kurt Signetti did. He was able to pick guys. Now, he did have a very mature group. I think his kids averaged 24, 25 years old. He had a lot of older kids who had been redshirt, 6-year, all that kind of stuff. But just a great job of evaluating talent and then preparing them. And I guess when I go back to everybody evaluating, is it the X's and O's or Jimmy's and Joe's? I think his example is where X's and O's are a lot more important than you think. How you move those pieces around, how you evaluate, how you teach fundamentals, where you place them on the field, all those things that they did so well at India were more about coaching than it was the best players.
Yeah, I agree with that. And to hear Nick Saban say that, like, why are you relying on, other people? Well, I mean, I want to push back on that a little bit because haven't these coaches created this environment? I mean, they're getting $11 and $12 million. If anybody wants to take control of the program, isn't it the head coach? So why are they relying on other people and analytical people to make these decisions, especially when they're getting a $10 or an $11 million price tag?
Well, it's the transition, Joe, of the game. I can remember even when I was in the SEC, that's 25 years, we were very aware of what our fans thought. If you did not appear to be taking recruiting seriously, if you did not appear to be winning it, it was as much a loss as a losing season in the Deep South, or where recruiting is followed as closely as football. And so you had to figure out who the 5 stars are, who the 4 stars were, and you had to be careful because sometimes you spent more time winning the recruiting war than getting the best football players. I think now, as we see what's going on and the coaches are making the big bucks, they have to realize that it's all about winning and losing now. It isn't about pleasing your fans by going out there and saying, we got more 5-star than the other guy, because that's the way it's always been. And I think that's the thing that Indiana now has shown us. We can forget that. We can go away because they just beat us with not one 5-star in their roster.
Yeah, when Coach and I do come back, we'll dive deeper into the national championship win for Indiana. We'll take a deeper look at the quarterback play, Carson Beck going up against Heisman Trophy winner Fernando Mendoza, coming right back on the Bowden Blitz. All right, back on the Bowden Blitz. Joe Lisi and Coach Bowden breaking down Indiana's win over Miami on Monday night. We talked about the coaching perspective. Kurt Signetti just becoming one of the best head coaches in college football over the past couple of seasons. Coach, I want to talk about the quarterbacks, but I do want to get your take. Would you put Signetti's performance where he is now entering the 2026 campaign up there with Kirby Smart and Lane Kiffin and some of the elite head coaches in college football? Has he done enough in 2 seasons and winning a national championship to garner that respectability?
Yeah, he does. Now, and let me say this: he's passed them all in first impressions, in his start, his first 2 years. Go back and look at those two guys. The first 2 years, he's passed everyone in the business. I had a nice start at Auburn when I was there the first 2 years, 21-1 off of a losing program, but we were on probation and not on TV and a lot of those things. But does that mean he's in their league? No, that's a body of work. I don't know that it's going to be a little bit of body work, because what happens now that he set the standard so high, what does he do next? Can he maintain it? Does he lose coaches? Does he lose somebody, get hurt? The injuries hurt 1 year. So he's got to face that habit of, okay, I built a monster now. What am I going to do year after year now? And I think he's got a few years of really enjoying this, because he's been fighting hard to get to the Power 4 level. And I don't think he's ready to just sit back and play off his laurels. But I think when you compare him to guys that have been doing this that have been on top for a while, even Kirby Smart and definitely a Nick Saban, we say, yes, best 2 years ever, great start. Historically, it will be remembered maybe as one of the greatest starts, is the greatest start in college football with the very worst team. But I've seen too many guys that were hot for 4 or 5 years, and then it goes to somebody else.
It does. Do you like his comments? He said, I should retire, but we need the money. What did you think of that guy? What did you think of that comment that he came out with, this morning?
Well, you know what? I spent a lot of time, and a lot of people don't realize, but because I go so far back, I came up kind of like him. I didn't make a whole lot of money at Salem College in Sanford going into Auburn University. And so you need to be there a little while to get that kind of security. I think it was half tongue in cheek, but he's just, the other point was he's just now into the benefits, rewards of his success, the rewards of his hard work. I've heard him talk about, and I was in the same boat where I had to wash jerseys, where I had to line the fields. When you're at a small college, you do a lot of things people don't imagine. So he got a little football winning he wants to do. He's, and I've said this since the beginning, he's got a little chip on his shoulder because he's been fighting from the bottom up, and he plays and his coaches with a chip on his shoulder, and his players play with a chip on their shoulders. So if he can hang on to that and keep on going with it, it will go with him far. But I promise you, it gets a lot harder from here, because everybody in the country, everybody in the Big Ten first, will spend half their off season studying nothing but Indiana video. And everybody that knows they're going to be a playoff team, they will also be studying that, because he has forced us to say, is there something we're missing? Is it more about X's and O's and not just Jimmy's and Joe's? How come he can get his players to play so much more fundamentally sound than the opposing team? Because you can go back, look at penalties. He won that battle. Look at time of possession. He won that battle. Look at the rushing yardage. By a few yards he won. He kind of does everything right. And that takes a lot of coaching and a lot of focus and control by that head coach to make sure everybody is doing their job.
Absolutely. And I think when you look at the quarterback perspective, Mendoza was a bit more consistent, obviously, than Carson Beck. Did have some struggles in the third quarter. That allowed Miami to get back into the football game. But when the game was on the line, the 4th and 5 play, I mean, Coach, you want to talk about a Heisman moment. That was it for Fernando Mendoza. He not only gets the first down, he twists, he turns, he dives into the end zone. I mean, that was a miraculous play to not only score the touchdown, not fumble the football, he takes the hit. I mean, he is a gamer and just elevated his play on Monday night. And I think when you look at Carson Beck, yes, he was, with the football in the final minute and a half of the matchup. He was across midfield. He was within striking distance, makes a bad read, throws a flat football. But not only that, though, Coach, I feel like the game plan out of Miami was a little complacent. They were playing a little bit more rope-a-dope. they were playing not to lose as opposed to attacking and being aggressive to try and take the game away from Indiana. Do you agree as well when you watch that game plan on Monday night?
Well, yeah, I mean, they did get behind by 10 and had to catch up, but that has been the book on Cristobal all year, on the head coach at Miami. It's been his thing. He's kind of conservative. He wants to run the football. He wants to control that. This is a game where he had to open it up, and he's still playing close to the vest. I think that's what he's gone with as he's gotten more success at the end of the year. But I think if he can open up and continue to open up his offense, when you think about the great Miami teams that they're trying to get back to, the 5 national championships during the 80s and the 90s up until 2000 and 3 or 4, it was about explosive offense and bone-crunching defense. It's both sides of the football. That's where I think that's as he develops as a head coach, and I think he has. He's not making the mistakes. They had penalties now on third downs they didn't need to have. And they were a little bit close to the best, but I think as he grows as a head football coach, that's the area he's got to continue to grow.
Yeah, Coach, again, when you think about Miami as well, outside of Malachi Tony, I mean, Mark Fletcher's a really good back, and Malachi Tony, one of the best, explosive young wide receivers. Right. I still feel, Miami didn't have that swag that they used to, right? To your point, you think Miami, you think Mike Irvin, you think Lamar Thomas. Happen. Right. They didn't have Santana Moss. Where was the speed on the perimeter to really challenge Indiana? I think that's the biggest change when we look at this Miami team. Yes, defense, running the football, conservative ball control attack, but that explosiveness needs to come back next year and beyond.
Tall, lanky receivers. I mean, it goes so many of them that they've had throughout the years at Miami, and the quarterback to get him the ball. I think that's where they need to look to expand their football team and their talent. So more explosiveness on offense, and continue to build that offensive line of defense, and they'll be back in the hunt next year.
We'll come back with more play from Monday night's national championship team right here on the Bowden Blitz. All right, back on the Bowden Blitz, Joe Lisi and Coach Bowden breaking down all things national championship. We left off talking about the quarterbacks, the coaches. We'll take a look at the running back play. And when I brought up Mark Fletcher earlier, Coach, he was the one bright spot for Miami. Him and Malachi Tony lived up to the hype. They both scored touchdowns on Monday night. Fletcher's a bruising back. Malachi Tony, one of the best wide receivers entering college football next year, and he'll only be a sophomore. Thoughts about both of those players' play on Monday night? And when you look at Miami and you think big picture, they're going to start to get those type of players back in South Beach for years to come.
Really do, and that's the kind of player that they had throughout the years when they were winning national championships. But I would say this, they would usually have two backs like Fletcher just going back and forth, and just popping in there every other series, each of them maybe a little different style, but both NFL caliber players playing at the same time. Tony it's amazing. He was kind of a guy that nobody kind of wanted too much, a little bit undersized, not the top guy recruited, but really the guy with the heart, the guy that wanted to play. I think you take a guy like that and you surround him with some of those outside players. I was amazed still at the ability of the quarterback at Indiana and the wide receiver to make the back shoulder throws over and over again by timing and execution and football IQ. They utilize those wideouts, but Miami needs to get those guys that kind of can dominate on the edge to go with a Tony, because a Tony's going to be in motion. He's going to hurt you bouncing across the middle. He's going to hurt you doing speed sweeps and things like that. But they need to go ahead and get some of those players like they were getting. and then kind of polish up a little bit. They still had terrible penalties. They didn't have that many more penalties than Indiana, but they had some crucial ones. Third down on defense 3 times, let them have a first down when they had them stopped. I mean, those were games that could have cost them the game. A little breakdown in the kicking game, and things like that I think Miami can polish up and get better so that they have a chance now if they can find their quarterback. Because, this portal thing, and I hate to jump around, but the quarterback is the most – whoever gets the best quarterbacks has got the best chance to build around it. And that's just the way it is with that portal. You got a chance to go find you one. You better find you one.
And they found Carson Beck, 7
Yes.
years in college, at a national championship team with Georgia, went to the SEC championship. And again, to go back to the offensive philosophy in Monday night's game, I think it is intriguing. You had the veteran out of both players, even though Fernando Mendoza won a Heisman Trophy, even though Fernando Mendoza and Indiana were the number 1 team. Just from an experience perspective, Carson Beck had played in bigger games, right? Up until this point. And I think I just feel like his play a little bit, they should have given him a little bit more responsibility in that type of game if in fact you did believe in his play.
Well, and you're right. I mean, I think he was the right guy. He had an outstanding year. He was a great response, a great reason that they played so well going down the stretch. He came through with a huge game in their previous win last week against Ole Miss. He really came through and led them to that late score to win that football game. And again, that goes back to an offensive line head coach generally thinks between the tackles. That's where their mind is. That's where they see the football game being played. He's got Shannon Dawson's an excellent coordinator. He's got to let himself rely on Shannon Dawson a little bit more because Shannon does want to open it up. He does want to make it happen on explosive plays. And that's the one thing I think that Mario Cristobal, as he has grown, like I said, he has improved so much from a year or two ago as a head coach. That's the next step, I think, as they look to open up. Because Beck really did have a good year. He really was a good pick for him. He was the mature veteran, a lot of experience that they needed to get them to the national championship game with a great chance to win the game.
Absolutely. And I think when you look at Indiana, they're going to now have transfer quarterback Josh Hoover in from TCU. They lose Fernando Mendoza's brother, Alberto, that put his name into the transfer portal. He will not be in Bloomington most likely in 2026. Coach, if I had to ask this question, which team has a better chance of cracking the college football playoff next year, Miami or Indiana? Which one would you say?
Well, I think it's pretty close. I think because of the way Indiana builds, the way they develop and use their quarterback, I would say they're most likely to make it. Miami's got to fill that quarterback slot and make some corrections and not fall down in the middle of the season like that against LSU. I mean SMU and Louisville. They've got to make sure those games don't happen.
We'll see you next time on the Bowden Blitz.